you want me to do that or you want to do that?
Good.
So today is also the English anniversary of the Six-Day War, and we've lit a yahrzeit candle to remember both the dead and the injured in that miraculous campaign. And part of our learning should be Nishmat, all the those who unfortunately lost their lives in that campaign. We are continuing Breshit Parshat Noach, Genesis chapter 9, verse 21, Perek Tet Pasuk Kaf Aleph. We're on page 90 in the section on Noach.
You didn't put the other 90.
Breshit.
Vayesht, and he drank, with the Mercha. So remember from before, Mercha slightly connects us to what was before, but mostly draws us forward into what's going to come afterwards. Number one, after the vineyard produced its fruits, Noach was anxious to enjoy the first crop of his efforts, and he drank from their juice, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So, if you remember, way back from the last time we got together, Noach was trying to take all of the seeds and the things that he had preserved in the ark through the flood, and he was trying to use the strength of the ground as a sense of permanence and a sense of continuity to bring those things back into the reality of the world going forward, and to try to elevate each and every one of them and use them for their higher purpose. So his drinking from the crop has to tie in with the fact that he was trying to elevate each of these things. Min hayayin, from the wine, number 2, with a tipcha. So this refers us back to what we had just thought about, and perhaps is loosely connected to what goes after, but mostly is focusing our attention backwards. So he drank from the wine, which he took from the wine which he had obtained through the cooperation of the Satan. So we had mentioned in Midrash before that in fact the Satan was involved in fertilizing the ground and allowing it to be fertile again for the crops that Noah planted. So even though Noah's intention were to bring everything to its highest possible goal, there was obviously a competing force trying to bring each thing down to its earthly and most mundane or worse aspect, as shown by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So from the wine he drank. The drinking now becomes the focus, because we're pushing ourselves back, rather than elevating the crop and making it what it could be.
What's the second part? I missed. What is
so
that?
There's a midrash at the end that we quote as a remark at the end of the last pasuk. It's on page 90, and it's just on top of the pasuk that we've got, not that one.
Oh, the remark.
Look where it says remark.
As
As you may or may not recall, after we read through this midrash, I tried to source it and I couldn't find it in Breshit Rabbah, so I'm not quite sure the source of this midrash. Nonetheless, it basically says that the Satan helped Noach to plant at least the first thing that Noach had planted, the vineyard, in order to refertilize the ground and make it something that was capable of supporting. Noach chose the thing that perhaps could be the most elevated. He chose grapes, and the Satan put this as a challenge, because grapes have the ability to be something that elevates the spirit when you use it and try to glean the fact that it is allowing you to do something that is of a higher purpose, and it also has the ability to take away your sense of logic and your sense of restraint and make you do things that show lack of control. So the Midrash says Satan participated in this process. We're at number 3, Vayishkar, and he became groggy. So normally we would interpret that as he became drunk. And I'm not quite sure, again, the route that he is trying to access in order to say that this becomes groggy, not drunk. But perhaps someone better familiar with...
Maybe the form time he's in Gregor, I don't know.
No, so number 3, Noach encouraged. So this is with an etnachta, so this is going to be a stabilizing influence and perhaps something that elevates the point.
What's the stabilizing?
The fact that it's got an etnachta.
Right, but what's stabilizing about it?
So we're going to read through what the good doctor's thoughts were about this. So, right, we would think that this is the very point of destabilization. Right. So, Noach, encouraged by his partner, continued drinking, and he became groggy, stressed by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So,
who's the partner?
How is that stabilized?
Well, that's what we're...
So, we use wine to make an event special and to give importance to an event, to tell us that we can take something that is potentially destabilizing and turn it into something that is the most special and the most holy. So that's why we'll use wine at Kiddush. That's why we'll use wine at a toast. That's why we'll use wine to make an event special, because we're showing that even something that takes our control away from us, we're able to have mastery over and allow us to do something special with. When you say the blessing on wine, it gets its own special blessing, Borei Pri Agafen. What's special about wine? Wine is something that gets better with age, whereas most things decompose and rot and get worse with age.
It gets better, right.
So this is respecting the fact that things can actually get better and better and better.
Like all of us.
Like all of us.
You're not getting older, you're getting better. Or is that better?
So at the beginning, Noach starts to take the wine and actually is able to elevate it to a higher level. So he succeeds at the beginning. So that's why we say it's a stabilizing influence, because at the beginning of the battle, Noach seems to be winning. And we have a note at this point: the last quote-unquote Adam, i.e. Adam Arishon, was equally conditioned to become a subsequent victim of Satan, having lost control and the ability to make a clear decision. Earlier, Chava was hypnotized and persuaded by the original serpent to eat the forbidden fruit, and thereby brought disaster to the world. It was similar in the case of Noach, who was first encouraged by the Satan to drink the good wine and be trapped at the end to face a disaster. It is apparent that the mind and judgment of man are primary targets for Satan. The only way to counteract the Satan is through the guidance of Torah. And he quotes a Gemara in Sanhedrin to bring this point. So we're always warned that when you try to do something that is at the edge of your ability, you're trying to bring something up to its highest levels, that you potentially have farther to fall. That doesn't say that you don't make attempts. It says that you be careful and you prepare and you realize your own limitations when you do challenge yourself with something like this. Vayitgal, and he was uncovered. So normally Vayitgal would be reflexive, would be, and he uncovered himself. So again, we are taking this verb and putting it into a different context, into a different verb form.
He's making it passive.
So he's making it passive rather than reflexive.
Right.
Well, wouldn't he probably?
No, there's no heat.
You could still, he was uncovered, like, if somebody drinks and they start spilling all their personal information, they uncover themselves, their true identity
Right,
or
but we're not
whatever.
saying that he did it to himself. We're saying passively, he was uncovered.
That's the English translation. But wait, first of all, Vayitgal is not heat pale necessarily. Where's the hay? It's not a
The hay
pure.
Yeah, it's not
disappears when you've got...
Vayitgaleh. There's no hay because there's no Hashem in here.
Not Vayitgal. I'm saying the heat.
It should be
heat pale-
Vayitgaleh.
No, to make it reflexive would be have to be
Future-
the heat.
So-
Heat galgel or heat would.
The heat, yeah, so.
But it's not a heat.
By
It's just the
Yit-
top. No, heat palel has the top, the hay, and the top. I'm saying, I get what you're saying with the top, but
in present. In future, it drops off,
this is future. No.
right? So you've got vav ha'ipuch here. You've got the vav that turns
Yeah.
the future into past.
How do you do with heat palel? In the future. Vayit palel. Oh, there's
Who-
no vayit palel. Right.
Who-
Okay, so there's no
yes.
hay.
Who
Okay, so you're right, okay.
Who yitgal? He will reveal himself.
So you're saying it is a pure reflexive, but so then
But
why does he
so
translate it
so
passively?
the question is, how does he trade it? Do it as a passive?
Oh.
He feels.
You feel?
So I think he's taking it as a he feel.
No,
Which
then
is
there'd have to be a hay.
The
there.
soft passive. Okay, but again, I'm going to have to go over my grammar lessons again. I'm sorry that I'm not prepared for today. But in any case, we've taken this and we're using it as a passive, not as a reflexive. Number 4, due to his condition, Noach was unable to care for himself, and he was uncovered without reacting, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So this is a tipcha, and this is going back to the fact that he was groggy. So we have to take his attempt to turn something high and realize that it was in that context that he became unable to continue to control what was going on and allowed himself to be uncovered. Betoch with a mercha. So this is going to lightly be connected to what's before, but mostly sweep us forward into what's going to come afterwards. The act was anticipated without intervention because Noach was within his seclusion and no interference was expected from the outside, as denoted by the directional shape of the reading mark. So the fact that he was inside allowed Noach to not react to the fact that he became uncovered. So this is going to bring us forward into what where he allowed this lack of discretion to happen. Ohalo, his tent, or aholo, I should say. We'll pronounce it correctly. Aholo, his tent. In addition, so this is the sof pasuk. So this is a stabilizing influence. In addition, his tent was a place of privacy, and within it, no suspicion was raised. So, because there is an allowance to be uncovered or naked within your own tent, this gave him a sense of this was something that was okay. So that's how he felt that he had stability, even though obviously he was not acting in an appropriate fashion. So
I think there's a nice point here. Vayitgal puts the onus on him. I think it is a hitpael. He allowed himself to be uncovered. So,
So it's not that he did it himself. He didn't uncover himself. He didn't take off his clothes. He let somebody else take off his clothes.
Or he allowed himself to be impaired enough to be inappropriately exposed.
Right. So
the nice thing is, it's fairly recently that we blame drunk drivers for being drunk, or people who act inappropriately for being drunk. We all remember a time when people would use it as an excuse. Oh, well, I didn't mean it, I was drunk. Or I didn't say that really, I was drunk. But what he's saying here is, no, you're getting drunk and allowing yourself to be impaired is your fault.
You have to own it.
You have to own it. And I think that's actually a nice point.
So the other sense of galui, of something that's revealed, is not only to be physically revealed, but to be emotionally or spiritually revealed. So the question is whether he planned on this to be something that was going to fail, or whether he tried to do his best and yet the circumstances made it so that he would fail. So it actually, if you take it from that aspect, he was trying to do better, but because he brought himself into a state of vulnerability, it allowed this to happen to him. So I'm not sure which sense to take it in, whether to take it in Vayitgal, the physical act that he was uncovered, or the revelation of the fact that he had made himself too vulnerable. He had made himself susceptible to this happening to him. And I don't know which sense to take in it. It probably has both meanings, both the higher and the lower, so that we get both the physical meaning of his failure and the spiritual sense of him making himself vulnerable and therefore falling to Satan's plan. We will read the pasuk out loud so that we can hear the idea of the connection between Vayishkar, and he became groggy, and Vayitgal. So even though there's a pause after Vayishkar, that he got groggy or drunk, Vayitgal connects to that and separates itself out a little bit from the B'tocho Alo. So the tent is this stabilizing, tried to think that he could do it because there was sort of some safety, but nonetheless the grogginess allows the Vayitgal. So we'll try and listen to the pauses and see if we get that sense. Vayesh min hayayin, vayishkar, vayitgal, betoch ahlo.
You want to make a comment on Satan? The sense of, what do we think about Satan? It's not about the trope, it's just the idea of Satan. It's almost
Concept.
Yetzer Hara, but like Satan, it's like when you were talking about owning something. I don't like that's such a Christian thing to me, Satan. I mean, everything's from God, and who's Satan? This independent agent that we can blame? Oh, Satan made me do it. The devil made me do it. But that's not a Jewish thing.
Jewish concept of Satan is both an individual and a collective Yetzer Hara, will to do evil. It is something that allows you to stray from the path. Hence the root soteh.
Right.
So this is something that the soteh is a woman who strays. So we're having the same
different spelling.
It's a different spelling, but it's the same
root or whatever.
So what?
But by calling it Satan, why do you say?
The question is why are we anthropomorphizing it? Why are we giving it its own character and its own life by itself? Because it is an expression of ego. It's an expression of self. When you set yourself up as yourself and yourself as the goal, then that almost takes on a life in and of itself. And when you stay on the plan, then you become part of the group. You no longer have that sense of self, that sense of being different from everybody else, being following your path versus a shared path that everybody else is trying to take. I don't know if that's an adequate answer as to why it anthropomorphizes into almost a character of its own, but certainly it's an expression of ego. So that allows it to stand by itself.
It's not Chas v'Shalom, there's God and there's Satan. No, that's
not
really
not in any way.
heretical.
Satan is something that, as I said, is either individual or group, and it's in opposition to us, not in opposition to Hashem. So it's a will of our own or an expression of our own will that
To
we
go
have to
against
fight
Hashem,
against
yeah.
either individually or collectively, and God stands separate from that. So it's not an equal and balancing force as you would as other religions would pose, that you've got good versus evil, and they both have a strength over you. You've got good, and you know that that's what you're supposed to do, and yet within you have a sense of I am the most important thing, and I have to follow that goal as well, and that's what Satan is an expression of. So it's not a force opposed to God; it's a force opposed to us, or an internal struggle opposed to us.
I read something nice about Satan on weekend, that Satan functions essentially like a malach, as a very clever and devious malach. He doesn't have a single mission to do. He has greater power, but that his mission is to allow us to choose the good, to go through a struggle and allow us to choose the good, so that we become sentient beings and we become close to Hashem by choice, as opposed to being automatons like most malachim.
What you sent to it. That has the
So-
letters of Satan in it.
So one of the things that we see is the word Hasatan has a gematria of 364, and Yom Hasatan, Yom Kippurim stands in opposition to Hasatan. Why 364? Why are we doing with the solar calendar year, not the Jewish calendar year? The purpose of Yom Kippurim is to completely separate your soul from the physical. What you do on Yom Kippurim is you separate yourself from food. You separate yourself from... So food is basically a tool to tie the soul into the body. The purpose of eating is the soul, which is spiritual, and the body, which is physical, are polar opposites of each other and would generally reject each other. The Midrash, in fact, tells us that when God takes the soul and says you're going to go into a body, the soul literally cries before it's put into the body. How do you keep things that are so opposed to each other together? And that's the purpose of food. And we see that in nature. Why? If you don't eat for a little while, you get a little groggy and a little bit distracted. The soul and the body start to wander apart. If you don't eat for long enough, you go unconscious. The soul and the body don't even know about each other. If you don't eat for long enough, you die. The soul and the body separate completely. So the function of food is to tie soul and body together. The function of shoes, so that's one restriction on Yom Kippur. The function of shoes is to tie your body to the physical world. Shoes are your ability to travel and connect throughout the world. So why don't you wear shoes on a fast day, on Yom Kippur? Because you're trying to separate your soul out from this world. You're trying to give your soul the ability to just be a soul that day and not be connected to the world. You want to give the soul practice in being a soul only, not a soul connected to a body. So that's why you separate itself from food. You separate itself from shoes. So when you would see each of the prophets and they're introduced, they're told, Shal na'alecha me'al reglecha. Take your shoes off. Don't be concerned with the worldly. Be concerned with the spiritual. What do the Kohanim do in Beis HaMikdash? They took off their shoes in order to serve. They put themselves in the spiritual position, not in the physical, earthly position. We separate from marital intimacy. Again, a way of perpetuating your body within the world. We separate ourselves from anointing, taking care of the physical body in order to allow the physical body to perpetuate itself. And we separate ourselves out from drinking, same concept as food, something that ties the soul into the body. So on Yom Kippur, on that one day, we're giving the soul practice in being a soul only and separating itself out from the need to be a soul connected to a body. So why is Hasatan 364? Why is it related to the solar year, not the solar year? No pun intended.
Yes,
pun intended.
And soles of your feet. It has to be a connection. Soles of your feet. It has to be.
I don't know how much English has that connection, but
everything has to be. Where do you get that sole of the feet? I mean, all of a sudden.
So in any case, why is it 364? Why is it not related to the Hebrew calendar year? Because we're talking about exactly the earthly domain, separating yourself out from that. So Hasatan is 364 and the solar calendar year is 365. So again, Hasatan is something that ties us to the physical, tells us that we're a body, not a soul, i.e. is an expression of ego. And Neshama is something that is beyond that connection to nefesh, I guess. Nefesh is the lowest aspect of the soul. It's the part that connects us to reality that is finite. So it's the lowest part of infinite that will couple with finite. So that's my take on Satan. Did it give you any more depth? Gave you something to think about. Okay, so we're going to go on. Page 91, Pasuk Kaf Beit, 22. Vayar, and he noticed with a Rivi'i. So this is going to make this one word stand out and be something that is noticeable and stands by itself. It was Ham who by audacity discovered Noach within his tent, and he noticed that his father was comatose, unable to react, as pointed out by the broader meaning of the reading mark. So,
broader.
By the broad meaning of the reading mark. So, and he noticed means that he noticed without necessarily anybody else being there so he's standing alone, i.e. Noach is no longer conscious of the fact that somebody else is observing him, somebody else is noticing. So the noticing is standing in and of itself. So that's where we're deriving the fact that Noach is in fact passed out at this point. Do we understand that? That comes from the Rivi'i, from the fact that the noticing is actually standing in isolation, with nothing else there about it. So he's noticing, and Noach is not noticing that he's noticing.
So he's the
You
only
got
one
that?
standing in the room.
So he's the only one standing in the room. Yes. Ham. So this is a yativ. So remember that there are two notes that look like this.
How do you know it's yativ?
I'm going to tell you how I
Okay.
know this is yativ. So there are two notes that have exactly the same exactly the same shape, but have a different appearance or a different name and a little bit of a different function. One is called a ma'apach. A ma'apach is something that comes in the middle of a word and usually accents a syllable later on in the word, and will come after the vowel which it is emphasizing. Yativ specifically draws you back to the first syllable of the word, comes before the first vowel. So normally, if it was a mapach, you would see the kamatz under the chat, and the note would be written after that. But here, because it is a yativ, it's coming before that, and it specifically draws your focus right to the back. It goes before this word, and then it's going to focus it forward. So you have to go right back, and then move forward from there.
Can you have a yativ on a non-monosyllabic word?
Absolutely.
Can you have a...
But yativ always comes before the first vowel. Yativ is the very first thing that you see. So it's drawing your attention way back. And then it does the same thing as a mapach. It focuses from there and allows you to conclude and move forward from there. So, Cham with the yativ, number 2. As the initiator of the adventurous plan, Cham was also joined by his son, and both practiced homosexual and pederastic